Welcome to our first ever episode, Silence, the Assassinations That Changed America. For our podcast, we will be talking about the chaos surrounding the 1960s, of the multiple assassination attempts and murders of Robert F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and John F. Kennedy. Our first component will consist of a full overview of the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy. Then the official report and the conspiracy theories surrounding him. Episode 1 will be Robert F. Kennedy. Episode 2, Malcolm X. Episode 3 will be Martin Luther King Jr. And then episode 4, all three historians we have called on will come back to talk about the big assassination of the 1960s, John F. Kennedy. Please, I'd like to introduce our first historian, John Wilkenbergs, the historian on Robert F. Kennedy. Please welcome Mr. Wilkenbergs.
Thank you for having me here live.
Nice to see you again, John.
Please tell us about RFK.
So RFK. So RFK was assassinated on June 5th, 1968, when he was shaking hands with his supporters in a crowded hallway in the Ambassador Hotel, when suddenly he was shot by a man later identified as Sirhan Sirhan. Sirhan Sirhan was a Palestinian nationalist who claimed he acted in revenge of Kennedy's pro-Israeli sympathies.
When was Robert F. Kennedy pronounced dead?
Robert F. Kennedy unfortunately died the next day, June 6th, from injuries to the head and the body. Sirhan was originally sentenced to death for her sentence, but California deemed the death penalty unconstitutional, and his sentence was commuted to a life sentence.
Is he still alive to this day?
He is. He's actually still living in prison in San Diego.
I have a question. What was the conspiracy theories surrounding RFK's death?
So there were about 3 main conspiracy theories. One is a woman in a polka dot dress who claimed responsibility right after the assassination. The second one would be a second gunman theory, and the third would be possible involvement of the CIA. So many of these theories were examined by the FBI after an investigation was ordered by the Senate, but they were judged to be wrong. So nothing has ever become of them.
Tell us more about the second gunman theory.
The second gunman theory was suggested after Kennedy's wounds made it seem that his assassin was standing behind him, not west of him, like witnesses described. This theory is supported by the chief medical examiner, coroner of Los Angeles, Thomas Noguchi. Noguchi performed Kennedy's autopsy and said that the fatal shot was behind his right ear at approximately 1 inch.
And you said that other witnesses said different. What did they say?
Well, other witnesses said that Kennedy was turning as Sirhan shot him, so it would have exposed his right ear where he was shot at. And Sirhan was also like about a yard away from him is what they said. And he lunged forward. So with Sirhan being about 5'5", his arms would be about 2 feet 7 inches. So when he lunged forward, it would put the gun about 1 to 5 inches away from Kennedy's head. Now, backing this theory up, witnesses say that bullet holes found in the door frames were later destroyed, and that an audio recording of the shooting, who was analyzed by multiple people, but mainly the people that have said that there were 13 shots, and some people have said that there were only 8 shots. But I won't go into that anymore right now because there's no rock solid evidence supporting it.
Interesting.
So what about his brother? Because John got assassinated before. So what about him? Can you tell us about him and how his death correlates to RFK in any way?
Well, yes, it actually does. So JFK was assassinated by someone other than, if JFK was assassinated by someone other than Oswald, it's possible that RFK was killed by the same people that killed his brother. And they were scared that RFK would find out the truth behind his brother's death and bring those people to justice. It is also possible that RFK is connected to the assassinations of Malcolm X and MLK Jr., the biggest assassinations to ever happen, probably in the history of the world. And these are possibly all connected through members of the CIA acting under orders or acting roguely and establishing a huge hidden underground network of spies, traitors, killers, and they just went complete unnoticed due to multiple cover-ups in the group. However, I'll go over those. I know you will go over those conspiracy theories and those assassinations later on in your other podcasts, so I won't go into that anymore right now.
What are possible motives behind this?
Well, looking at motives, there's a lot of possibilities. RFK could have been killed so that Richard Nixon or Hubert Humphrey would have a better chance to win the election. It is also possible that people wanted to stop the civil rights movement from gaining any more traction in politics. Or it is of course possible that he was killed because Sirhan disagreed with Kennedy's views.
I would like to know, one of my questions here was how was the public felt? How did the public feel about this? Did they really care that much that RFK was assassinated, or did they feel, more of an outrage towards it?
They were definitely very, very outraged by such a tragedy occurring only years after JFK and Malcolm X were killed, and only months after Dr. MLK Jr. was shot dead in April. And it's reported that onlookers at the assassination shouted, "Kill him and lynch him," with many being shocked and grief-stricken over the terrible incident. And many also felt that this was a climax of the violence that had rocked the nation for the past few years. And while the murder was bad, some good things did actually become of it in the end. Some of these would be the Omnibus Crime Control and Safe Streets Act of 1968, and also the Gun Control Act of 1968.
And does the gun control, correct me if I'm wrong, but here I have that the gun control still remains in act today?
That is true. They actually, both those acts remain in effect today with a few minor changes over the years as needed. And these acts, as well as RFK and JFK, helped the Democratic Party gain and keep support among many minority groups, and Secret Service also began protecting presidential candidates after this assassination occurred. So some pretty good things did become of it, I would say.
You said that Kennedy, Sirhan was a Palestinian nationalist. What can you tell us about that?
Well, it's said that he was a Palestinian nationalist, and Robert Kennedy supported Israel. He had sympathies for them. So it's possible that he was just very, very mad at Kennedy for supporting Israel, and that's why he wanted to kill him, because if Kennedy got to presidential office, then who knows what he would have done for Israel, or what could have become of that.
It was nice to see you today, John. We'll bring you back later for the last episode.
That's all the
of the
questions
show.
that we have. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
for coming
Thank
today.
you very much for having me here today.
Of course.
Welcome back to episode 2, season 1. Silence, the assassinations that changed America. Today we'll be looking at Malcolm X. Malcolm X?
Will be talked about today by a historian we're bringing on the show, Olivia Bourgeois. Would you like to come on?
Hi, nice to see you guys again.
Nice to see you.
Lev and John.
Yes.
So, can you tell us about Malcolm X? Like, when was he assassinated and where? Like, what was he doing too?
So, Malcolm X was assassinated on February 21st, 1965, when he was 39 years old. At the time, he was in Washington Heights in New York City's Ogden Ballroom while delivering his address about the Organization of Afro-American Unity.
Who was he assassinated by?
He was assassinated by Mujahid Abdul Halim and Muhammad A. Aziz and Khalil Islam. It was further said, though, that Aziz and Islam were innocent and were exonerated in 2021.
2021. Isn't that recent? So what were these people's positive motives behind it?
So the possible motives by Mujahid Abdul Halim were said to possibly be due from the tension of Malcolm X splitting from the NOI in 1964. The NOI is the Nation of Islam, a religious organization founded in the United States by Wallace Fard Muhammad in 1930. They were committed to black nationalism, focusing their attention on African diaspora, especially on African Americans.
And so what did they view Malcolm X as?
So it was So Halim could have murdered him out of loyalty to the Nation of Islam, viewing Malcolm X as a traitor for his break from the group and his criticism of Elijah Muhammad, the leader of the NOI. It was also believed that he was influenced and encouraged within the NOI to be hostile to X, but nothing is confirmed.
Okay. And can you tell us that what conspiracy theories are like? Is it possible that someone else could have actually killed him?
So, according to many news articles that have been gone through, one of the quotes is Wednesday, Crump introduced Khalil Sultan Saeed, who said he was on Malcolm X's security team. He said he was falsely arrested by the NYPD 5 days before the assassination. He said, I believe I was detained in this conspiracy by the NYPD and FBI and to ensure Malcolm X's planned assassination would be successful. So this goes on to say that Malcolm X's bodyguard believes he was withheld from being at the event just so that X could be assassinated. And another woman had quickly capitalized on it by saying someone of his own kind did it, but they put it up to be done. They know they had more to gain by getting Malcolm X out of the way than they had to let him live. Talking about how it could be white supremacists responsible for his death, but it being covered up by it being framed on Halim, or Halim having to be framed.
Especially since this would have been the second assassination in 3 years.
Yeah.
Well, can you just tell us how the public reacted about it and the impact that it is on us still today?
So Malcolm X's murder devastated the public. He was a very valued political figure and an inspiration to many. An article stated that Malcolm X remains to some as the ultimate symbol of rage and resistance in the face of oppression, meaning he was very, very important to people, showing his true impact he had on many, especially people of color and African American descent, fighting for what he believed was right and deserved. He gave hope to many, and a morning man, Daniel Watts, the editor of Black nationalist magazine The Liberator, said, I think for the first time in history of struggle here in this country, we had a molecule of hope. In the sense knowing that we had a heritage, we had roots, and a motherland to which we could look for. He also inspired the younger people who seemed lost and confused in life, whether it was from their race or their sense of losing themselves in an identity, and he gave them a belief in themselves.
Wow, so Malcolm X, what a political figure he was. He really changed the landscape.
Very inspirational story. Thank you for telling us about this today.
Of course.
I hope the viewers at home enjoyed this. Thank you, and come back to our next episode, Season 1, Episode 3, and it will be on Martin Luther King Jr. and his assassination. Thank you. See you again.
See you soon.
Welcome back to Episode 3, Season 1 of Silence, the Assassinations that Changed America. Today, we will be bringing on a special guest to tell us about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his assassination. So we'd like to welcome on Lev Edenmiller.
Good to see you. Good to see
you.
you.
Welcome on.
Welcome.
So can you tell us about Dr. King and why was he assassinated? Where was he at?
Well, Dr. King on April 4th, 1968, was gunned down at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. He was there to support striking sanitation workers, black men demanding free pay and safer working conditions. Dr. King, of course you guys know, he was always on the front lines of justice, came to lend his voice and leadership to this cause. And what would have been just another step toward equality ended into tragedy.
What tragedy happened?
At 6:01 p.m., a single gunshot rang out. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was struck by a single bullet on the right side of the face, specifically just below his jaw, while he was standing on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Tennessee.
Really? Did he die right away, or did he live longer?
Well, the bullet entered his right cheek, and it fractured his jaw and several vertebrae, and severed major arteries in his neck, and then lodged into his shoulder, so coming actually through here and landing down here. He was rushed to the St. Joseph's Hospital, but an hour later, at 7:05 p.m., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was pronounced dead. The world that day lost a civil rights icon, a dreamer, and a preacher of peace.
Wow. Who killed him? Who would do such a tragedy?
Well, the man behind the trigger? None other than James Earl Ray, a fugitive and a convicted criminal who just 2 months later, he was captured at London's Heathrow Airport and arrested. He pled guilty, but he was still sentenced to 99 years in prison.
What were the possible motives behind James killing Martin Luther King?
Well, we can look at the first possible motives as most everyone thinks is first racism and hatred. Ray was known to harbor deeply racist beliefs that his friends and family knew of. Dr. King's relentless fight for racial equality and his leadership in dismantling segregation and uplifting black voices, well, Ray saw that as a direct threat. And he wanted to keep and maintain white supremacy. In their eyes, King was an enemy number one. So that's why that's just one of the possible motivations behind it.
Can you tell us about some more motivations or?
Yes. Well, when you look into possible second and third motivations, a second one would be fame. So some experts believe that Ray, who has a long criminal background, may have seen this as a path to notoriety. Killing one of the most recognizable figures in the world would guarantee that his name would be remembered. And even if though it would be for all the wrong reasons, he could go down as the greatest criminal of all time by killing MLK, Martin King.
Wow. What was the third reason?
Oh yes, the third reason. Well, though Ray confessed to killing Martin Luther King Jr., he later recanted, claiming he was just a pawn in the larger plot. A pawn, you would think? That means he was just one subject in a large matter. Theories have swirled for years. People wonder, was the FBI involved? Because of the FBI, fun fact, started tracking Martin Luther King Jr. beginning in 1955. The FBI surveillance and harassment of King included wiretaping, bugging his hotel rooms, and sending him anonymous letters aimed at discrediting him.
So what did this have to do with Martin Luther King being killed?
Well, this led many people to believe that they sent a man out to kill King because they knew of the location he was going to be at, because they could listen to his conversations, so they knew that they could just set up a location for him to be killed. It could have been, and some people say it could have been a shadowy network of powerful individuals determined to silence King. Could have been the president for all we know. Could have been a big bank corporation. We don't know. While official investigations never found a definitive proof, the doubts still remain about his death, especially among King's own family.
Wow. What happened to the aftermath? What did everyone else in the nation think about that?
The aftermath of Dr. King Jr.'s death, it shook the nation. Riots erupted in more than 100 cities. This period of time is well renowned and remembered as the Holy Week Uprising. It was most known for the grief, rage, and pain that poured into the streets. Americans all over the world were mourning, but also reckoning within themselves. Dr. King's funeral was held on April 9th in Atlanta, Georgia. Thousands gathered, leaders, even celebrities, and just ordinary people who followed Dr. King, all united by the loss of a man who dared to dream of a better world.
Wow. Did anything ever happen at his site where he died at? Did that become anything? Or, like, how do we remember Dr. King? How does he still affect us today?
Well, when you look at it, Dr. King was one of the reasons that the Civil Rights bill was passed by Lyndon B. Johnson, was due to his death. But we also have the Lorraine Motel where he was shot. It stands now as just a reminder of that tragedy. It has a place of remembrance and education. It talks about King's life, talks about the moment that happened there, and natural rights in general. It is actually classified as the Natural Civil Rights Museum now, not the Lorraine Motel. It preserves the legacy and the movement and the life of Dr. King, even though why does 3, even though Ray pleaded guilty, he later recanted and claimed that he was stabbed with a large part of the conspiracy? Why is that there? Why is that?
Alright, we can cut. Alright, so what were you saying? We'll cut it back.
I said Lorraine Motel, so just ask about Lorraine Hotel.
Very.
Just ask about it.
So
Go.
we'll cut off the whole part of it. Alright, you have to restart.
Maybe you should ask. Let me ask a question.
Yeah, because I was trying to, then he cut me off.
Yeah, let me ask a question.
So, how do we remember King today? Like, is there any, thing...
3, 2, 1.
So, how do we remember King today? Is there anything that stands in his remembrance at all?
Well, today, the Lorraine Motel stands as just a reminder of the tragedy. We also have other things such as Civil Rights Act that was passed by Lyndon B. Johnson after his assassination. The freedom that we have today for African Americans is widely regarded because of MLK. But back to the Lorraine Hotel, it is now the National Civil Rights Museum. It preserves the legacy and the movement of Dr. King.
Wow, that's a lot you've told us today. Thank you for coming on the show, talk to us about this.
Of course.
We hope
Anytime.
to have you back soon.
I will. Thank you.
Welcome back to our podcast, Silence, the Assassinations that Changed America. This is episode 4, season 1. Today we'll be talking about the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, and I'd like to welcome on our historians, Len Eden Miller and John Wilkinsburg.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having us back on.
Nice to see you guys again. I'm the historian, Olivia Boudishwar. Len.
We like to talk about John F. Kennedy. Well, John F. Kennedy, on a fateful day, in November 22nd, 1963, he was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. He was traveling in a motorcade to the Daily Plaza when he was fatally shot. Kennedy had been in Texas to promote unity ahead of the 1964 election and to ease tensions between liberal and conservative, some things we have today.
So, to bring up who assassinated him and their motives, Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested for the assassination and charged with the murder of Kennedy. He allegedly fired 3 shots from the 6th floor window of the Texas School Book Depository. Oswald's motives remain unclear. He had previously defected to the Soviet Union and expressed pro-Castro sympathies. The Warren Commission concluded that Oswald acted alone, though this finding has been widely disputed.
And some conspiracy theories that have come off of that are, despite the official conclusion, numerous conspiracy theories suggest that others may have been involved in Kennedy's death. The House Select Committee on Assassinations in 1979 concluded that Kennedy was likely assassinated as a result of a conspiracy, though it did not identify specific conspirators. Theories range from involvement of the CIA, the Mafia, anti-Castro Cubans, or a combination of these groups, often citing Kennedy's foreign policy decisions and alleged tensions with intelligence agencies as possible motives.
And Olivia here, would you like to tell us on who believed there was a bigger plot behind this?
So, the New Orleans District Attorney Jim Garrison believed that there was a big plot to kill Kennedy, buried beneath the Warren Commission that was led by Chief Justice Earl Warren and the members appointed by Lyndon B. Johnson. Future President Gerald Ford was also a member of this commission. So, Jim Garrison believed that members of the CIA and anti-Castro Cuban exiles were responsible for the assassination of President John Kennedy because they were mad at Kennedy for not wanting to go to war to free Cuba and dictator Fidel Castro.
And now this is because Kennedy did not want to commit troops to the Vietnam War as well, something that Lyndon Johnson committed troops to the entire time he was president. And Jim Garrison believed in a triangle theory.
What is the triangle theory, though?
So it's when there's 3 shooters arranged in a triangle so that they can easily shoot all right to the target and kill him. And it would probably
And
be
so where would these shooters be located?
the Texas School Book Depository, 100% someone there, whether it be Oswald or someone else. The grassy knoll and possibly another building, forming a triangle to kill Kennedy, which would also explain why many different people claim to have heard shots in different directions than each other. But despite all the evidence Garrison collected, including a witness who was possibly murdered, when Garrison began his first prosecution against the man by the name of Clay Shaw, the trial was unsuccessful and Shaw was acquitted quickly. However, this did not stop Jim Garrison from publishing a book, On the Trail of Assassins, as well as a movie titled JFK in 1991, which has kept Garrison's belief alive for decades. So if you would like to go look at those movies and books, feel free to.
So, how did the public react, Lev, to his assassination?
Well, of course, as one of the greatest assassinations of all time, the assassination had shocked the world and the nation, leading to an outpour of grief. Television coverage of the event and the subsequent funeral marked a significant moment in media history. Public opinion polls have consistently shown that a majority of Americans believe that there was a conspiracy to kill Kennedy, reflecting the enduring skepticism about the official account. The event also had a profound impact on American politics and cultures, including public trust in government and shaping the political landscape in the 1960s. That is what happened to John F. Kennedy, why, the conspiracies around it, and everything else. Thank you for listening to our podcast. That is our season finale of episode 4, John F. Kennedy. Thank you.
Stay tuned for season 2. Let's say goodbye to Lev, myself, and John.